I was busy working on my drawings, and as you can see, the line is very important of the drawing. And I was connecting a line, and I was here at my desk, and I was trying to connect the line. The lines weren't connecting, and I was just missing it, and they were going all over the place. And in that process, I said to myself, something's very wrong. And I backed my drawing chair into the big chair back here, called my caretaker who lives next door, and she called right away the ambulance, and I had a stroke in an part of one of the artery markers that can go right to the heart and problems. So we got to the hospital in time, and that explained to me why I couldn't make the line in the drawing. So what I've done now is I've taken that painting with those lines in it to my framer, who had some more of the materials that from my last show in May at the Artist Association, and she was making up the painting of the stroke marks in the painting, and the painting with the stroke marks in it, they were taken to the hospital, to the stroke center there at Community Hospital, and the painting will be up in the down in the stroke center office where all the technicians and the lab people and the nurses work on strokes. And that gives you a best example of what can happen to an artist who prides himself on the lines, or her priding herself on the lines, when it doesn't work because it's just having a stroke. I'm going to talk about the flat, the new colors from Golden Acrylic Company called Flat Acrylic. It's mixing it with 4 other different media that aren't as flat, but are also not as shiny as a traditional acrylic with medium. So we're going to look at, first of all, I finished the piece yesterday, finally. That got challenging for color reasons. And I went to, and I was playing with some different ideas. And when I play with different ideas, you don't always notice it. The public doesn't notice it as much as I do. So as we're looking at this, yeah. We see the interaction of orange, greens, and these colors that I've been playing a lot with lately. But I'm looking for a different flow to them and a different use of them. And that's real important. And the changes in the mediums, where something might be flatter, something else may have a slight glow to it. But I'm going to show you now a drawing, how I start these drawings and paintings. And there you can see with the pencil. And a very important part of this process is the single line and the flow from my body, my arm, to the pencil. I've talked about this before. But it's important that it's a continuation. So let's look at that. These different paints and some of the drawing equipment. This is fluid acrylic from Utrecht, and like Goldwyn, they make very good fluid acrylic. Fluid acrylic is very related to illustrators used to use when they use gouache, but it's not as flat. But it's fluid, meaning that I can move it around with a lighter touch than a regular acrylic. Okay, this is the new flat acrylic by Goldwyn. And it's flat. So the point of this is to be as flat as possible, but still having the fluidity of acrylic. In this case, is the cobalt teal. But all the colors have the same consistency and the same flatness. What I use a lot of times is the blue-green and Dr. Martin's Hydrus, which is with a slight bit of a glow to it. But this is India ink, permanent inks, but in used the way the traditional India inks were used, except this is all in the different colors. This is an acrylic ink by F&W, the British manufacturer. And this again has a little bit more glow to it, but very little. Again, we're talking about very little glow in any of these. Okay, we're going to go to the Hydrus Fine Arts colors that are a combination of the India ink color and the watercolor, and has a very, very permanent quality, but also can lay pretty flat. Not as flat, of course, as the flat acrylics, but almost as flat. So it's important that I have the variety, so the slight changes appear in the painting. We're also looking at the India ink fine arts colors, and in this case, they come in sets of 200, 150, 40, 30, 6. Very important. And it's really a small brush. If you get up close to it, you can see it's not a hard point at all. I'm also going to be using, and I use a lot of the brush with the Faber-Castell, like the other drawing brushes that I showed you. Faber-Castell has this point, and then it has the fine point. Occasionally, I use a gray. That's a gray. It has a very fine point to it, but it's also a brush. And I have a set of these that are for a variety of grays. And then I usually put color on top of the grays, using the French technique of the grays set down first, and then the color goes on top. Gruyere is the name of the French title of this technique. When I draw these simple lines, I may use the Autorama extra black. If I want a little more darkness to the line.
Is that lead?
Oh, this is carbon black. And I'll go.
Got it.
We'll go into the carbon black, and the Cretacolor, the Austrian Cretacolor, is a little bit lighter. In this case, it's the gray. Cretacolor, the colors from Cretacolor are wonderfully made for drawings and exquisite lines and things like that. And then this is a turquoise, a traditional turquoise pencil. And I'll use that only when I want a lighter line, a finer line. These are the Faber-Castell neutral and neutral grays and the blue-gray black. As opposed to what I had mostly, the brighter colors.
These are all markers.
These are markers, but they're ink. Remember, they're all permanent. These are all India ink markers. And that was the big breakthrough that Faber-Castell made, was being able to make a India ink flow through a felt tip brush. So when we were talking about that flowing through a brush, meaning that you can get a flow and a density that you can't get, and a permanency that you can't get with a traditional brush. I also use, here's a Daniel Smith 301 round.
And it's
all synthetic. These are all synthetic from Daniel Smith, and they hold a point beautifully. I've had this one for quite a few years, and the point doesn't go out. They also use this watercolor acrylic brush, which can get a little texture on it. I mean, not as even as the brush I just showed you. but it's important to have for big areas.
Nice.
And a traditional watercolor brush I've had for years that I also use for my India ink watercolor colors. And the copper. You don't see that anymore, the copper kernel. And this brush I've had since high school. I'm 79 and I've had it since I was 17. The paper is still a 300-pound paper. The Hydrus 300-pound paper that I've been using on this whole series. And because of the way it accepts not only the colors, but it's just the presence of the 300-pound paper. And we've talked about that before. But it has that, and has been made since the 1300s in mold. It's a mold-made paper by archers. Each sheet is different. Watercolor brushes that I don't mix with other ones like this. I never use Winsor in Series 7, the top of the line watercolor brush, or some of the newer versions of that with my mixed media. There's no advantage to using it, number one. Number two, I don't want to damage the brush. When I'm working here in the studio, I sit in my wheelchair now since my stroke. I have a wheelchair, but that's all I use it for now because I use it just to sit in here. The light, I got two different lights. I have a warmer light on this side and a cooler sunlight on this side, giving me this blend that I get in the middle. Constantly thinking of the interaction of the colors, interaction of the lines, interaction of what I want to say. And what I want to say is just as important as what I'm doing.